everyone, welcome to my channel and another art talk video. Today I'm going to be talking about a question that I have some strong feelings about. I'm actually quite ambivalent. I have feelings on both sides of the matter. So the question is it worthwhile to get a art degree to study art in college? And so I'm going to kind of take you through a little bit of what my experience was getting an art degree at a four-year university and just some of my feelings about what was helpful, what maybe was not, would I have done anything differently, and hopefully that will, if you're considering getting an art degree, that will maybe help you make a decision. Also understanding that everybody is different and comes from a different background, has different life circumstances, and I'm fully recognizing that I had a lot of advantages that many people probably don't. So I just want to kind of say that up front. But anyhow, let me go ahead and jump right in. So a little bit of background. I initially was going to go to school to study music, so vocal performance, and I wound up not passing my final audition to get into the music school, which was, of course, at the time devastating. It's tough to feel like you have this clear vision for yourself and where you want to go, and then not make it. So my first year, I was an open option major and just trying to figure out what am I going to do, and initially thinking I will try re-auditioning for the music school the following year and preparing for that. And then as I went through that first year of classes, I realized that maybe that was not what I wanted to do. I had some friends who were in the music school and they told me some things about how toxically competitive it was. And I was going, that's not me. I think music is something that can uplift others, and to be in a place where it's used to tear others down made me really sad. So I just felt like that wouldn't be a good fit. So I started really thinking about, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? What have I always loved? And I realized, like, even as a young child, like in, preschool and kindergarten, when they have you fill out those little sheets of like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would write artist a lot of the time. So, I think sometimes as children, we have a clarity of vision that perhaps gets clouded as we grow up, and maybe we let certain views and opinions or realities affect what we ultimately want to be. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. And at the very end of my freshman year, I declared the studio art major, which basically means, there's different areas of emphasis. My area of emphasis was in drawing and painting. There's also things like fiber arts, sculpture. Some places have ceramics, fiber art. I said fiber arts already, but anyway, things like that. So my area of emphasis was drawing and painting. And so I was very fortunate that my sophomore year, my freshman year, I lived in the dorm that was known as the arts dorm. So it was one of the dorms where certain classes were actually offered in the dorm building. They had a few classrooms on the main floor and in the basement. And since the dorm that I was living in was the arts dorm, I had actually gotten invited back to live in that dorm again as a sophomore, and I was thinking, perfect, I will be able to take some of my introductory art classes in the place I was living, which was fantastic. And honestly, those were some of the best art classes I took. They were the level 1 drawing and painting classes, and that professor was very astute. He really was about building technique at the same time as introducing other more ideas of theory and things like that. So that was definitely beneficial. And it was great because I was getting the art credit for the degree itself, but that professor was not actually affiliated with the art department of that arts and science school itself. So he, I think, was maybe a little bit removed from the actual art department, which wound up being to my benefit because it was I learned a lot in those classes, and also just was able to practice a lot, things that I already instinctively knew or had experienced myself with having been interested in art since elementary school and middle school. So that was definitely a plus. Then I started getting into some of my upper level class. So so it's like drawing 1, drawing 2, drawing 3, painting 1, painting 2, painting 3. And the drawing 2 class, I had a good professor, and he was associated with the art department. And again, that when it was kind of more of a focus on the technique, it was great. But I found I was really surprised. I was in my level 2 drawing class, and I had several classmates who, like, I would do something, use a certain material in a specific way, and they'd go, where'd you learn that? And I was so surprised, because some of it were things just I already knew, having done art on my own. And also my Grammy was an artist, so I had tips from her from when I was quite young, so I was very fortunate to have that. But also I learned them in the level 1 drawing and painting classes, and I would ask them, I would go, did you not learn this in your lower level classes? And they were like, no. It was kind of shocking. So I was really at an advantage having taken the lower level classes in the arts dorm. And then I got to level 3 classes, which for drawing and painting, it was called Drawing 3, Alternative Processes and Materials, and same with painting 3, Alternative Processes and Materials. And it was made very clear from the professors in those classes that they did not want you using any sort of traditional materials, which broke my heart, because I barely had any chance to really. I'd only had the 1 semester with oil paints for the painting class, and I was like, I want to explore this further. I'm just now kind of getting a grasp on this. And it was crushing to be told, you really can't pursue what you want to pursue. You have to do this. And so it was a little bit of clearly I have to get through this class and do a certain amount to what a professor would want, even though it's not at all what I want to do with my art. So I had to get a little creative. And for that semester in the painting class, I painted entirely with chocolate, which I was like, well, it's not a traditional painting material, and I love chocolate, so let's go with it. I think the idea had actually come from, like, I was talking with my mom one day, and we were saying, well, what do you like? What are things you like? What can you use? And I was like, well, I like chocolate. And we're like, yeah, let's. So that was kind of funny how that came about. And I was doing portraiture, which is one of my favorite things to do. So ultimately, I was able to find a way to do the subject matter and things that I wanted to do, even though I don't think I would have gotten there if it had not been for being pushed in a way of being forced to do something I didn't want to do. So while I didn't really feel like I got any sort of support or learning from the professor themselves, the experience was a learning experience, and it also might be somewhat realistic to the real world. If you're going to do more traditional kind of commissions and stuff, you might not always be doing the specific painting that you want to do, or drawing, or whatever it is. But if it's a commission and you wind up selling a piece of artwork, so sometimes you might have to do things that you're not exactly thrilled about doing, but there you go, as far as with your art. So I feel ambivalent about that. Ultimately, I wish I had more of a chance to build that technical skill, but I found a way, and that was good. And again, like, that creative thinking, like, I think artistic and creative people, although everyone's creative in their fields, like, everyone has a way of coming up with solutions and finding a way to do things. But for on the artistic side, I think a lot of the time we already have to kind of think that way to kind of get to a result that we want. So it kind of flexes that muscle. And then for the level 3 drawing class, I was, again, like, in a quandary of, I want to use more traditional materials. Graphite drawings had always been kind of the thing I did. And so I thought, all right, let's try. I asked my professor, I said, well, watercolor is a traditional painting medium, but it's not a traditional drawing medium. Can I use watercolor? And she said yes, which I was super grateful. And also, it terrified me because I had tried watercolors in middle school because my Grammy was an amazing watercolor artist. She could do landscapes and just like blew me away. She was incredible. And I tried, of course I was young, but I tried and just, I couldn't get it. I didn't grasp it. It was awful. I hated it. But this is the worst medium ever. Why would anybody ever paint with this stuff? And even again, when I tried like in high school, I was still like, oh, why? Yeah, I just didn't get it. For some reason, it didn't click. And then I started using it for the drawing class in college, and I connected somehow, either with time or age, or like maybe I had absorbed it just by being in the art, doing art more. Because one advantage of being in art classes is that you have to do a certain number of like drawings or sketches every week. So you're, practice makes perfect. That's, the old saying, but it's true. The more you do it, the more you improve. So it could just be like I'd gotten enough to that point. By now I was a junior. Was I a junior or a sophomore? I think I was a junior. Sorry. Yes, so third year in college classes, and it was finally something that I grasped, and now my favorite all-time medium is watercolor. So would I have gotten to that point with ultimately coming to watercolor and loving it, and that's my medium now? Would I have come to that point if I hadn't gone to college and taken those art classes? I don't know. Maybe not. I also like to believe that like the thing we're meant to do, like we'll ultimately get to that, but perhaps not if I hadn't gone to art school. Now, here are some things that I, either wish I'd known going in, or that you can always say, oh, I should have done this, or I would have done this. But ultimately, that's the path I took, and here I am, and that's fine. But just having some hindsight now, it would have been really nice to have been prepared for how, there was also almost this like disdain from my professors towards like making an art career by selling your work. This didn't happen to me, but I had a good friend who was in an art class, and she, in one of her studio classes, and one of her, I think it wasn't a professor, I think it was a student teacher, but again, there was a lot of grad students who were working on their masters, or even I think their PhDs, who were teaching art classes, who in a like very condescending, not meant to be complimentary at all, told my friend like, oh yeah, your artwork is sellable. And I remember hearing that story and being so confused and thinking, isn't that kind of the point? Like I in today's world, there's many different options for having an art career, and it doesn't have to strictly be you selling your artwork. But I was just so I wish I had known that at least the institution I went to, that was not at all, there was no preparation for the real world of art. It was so like wrapped up in concept and theory. And even in my my third level 3 drawing and painting classes, like sometimes other students, they wouldn't actually be like drawing or painting. It would like there was one person I remember, their painting was they'd gone to the thrift store, bought a bunch of mirrors, put it on the ground in one of the studio display spaces, and had some cardboard boxes that people needed to put over their head. And that was the project. It was definitely their art project, but I'm a more traditional type person. So in my mind, I wouldn't call that a painting. That's just me. I know. I could get into a whole other video of like, what's art, what's not art. And everyone has different opinions on that. So I won't get into that here. And it's not worth a debate, but just for my own personal view, I don't think of that as a painting. So it was discouraging to see professors like really excited about that kind of work. And then I had several friends and myself who did more like realistic traditional type stuff, or like actual paintings, whether they were abstract or not, and they were very much not criticized. They were criticized in a fairly negative way a lot of the time. So that wishing I had known that and been prepared. And also, by the time I realized like that's kind of what the art department was about, I felt like it was a little too late to actually transfer to an art school. And I don't know, I don't know enough about it. It could be that if I had gone to like an actual like art and design institute or art school itself, I might have gotten more of what I was looking for, that technical skill building and really developing your craft before you get to like your concept and your like theory behind your art. I think a lot of time like building the skill is what will bring about your concept. I mean, just as an example, Picasso, when you look at his very early work, as like a teen, he would do these amazing, super realistic, highly skillful drawings a lot of time of people, and then he chose to go a different direction. So to me that's different to have like develop the technique and then make that like actual decision to go in a different direction versus not maybe having built like your kind of skill to the level that it could be and then make and before deciding this is the theory I'm going to focus on. Anyway, again, these are just my thoughts and opinions, everyone. It comes from a different place, but that's just my experience. Other things that I would consider is honestly going to a 4-year university. It's a lot of money. I was very fortunate to have gotten a decent number of scholarships and financial aid. And I know that's not the case for everyone, and you might have to like pay all yourself and take out student loans. So, I think community colleges are so like, they're such a great place to start. Like you get some of your core credits out of the way, you probably save a lot of money, but you're still getting like some of that college experience. And you definitely want to make sure that the classes you're taking at community college are GT or guaranteed transfer. There's probably different terms for different regions, but here we called it guaranteed transfer. And that's actually how I took my world art history classes, because I was having trouble like finding space and getting signed up for the ones through the university that I was going to. So over one summer, I took World Art History Part 1, World Art History Part 2 online through the local community college, and it was great. And it actually wound up my art, because even if you're a studio major, you have to take a certain number of art history classes. And it was always really funny because you could almost always tell when the studio majors were in the art history classes because they tended to not like them, and vice versa. The art history students had to take a certain number of actual art introductory studio art classes, and they tended to not like them. I personally wound up loving my art history classes. Regular history, always couldn't stand it in high school and regular school, but art history, I loved it. It was fantastic. So I wound up adding the second major, which brings me to another point. I went to my advisor and thought, hey, I want to add this. How many more credits would it be? And that's going to make me more marketable, right? Like I could work in museums and things like that. I don't remember her exact response, but she like basically agreed with me. And I don't know if she was like just too afraid to like burst my bubble or I don't know. I don't know what happened, but she was thinking, oh, you're too cute. I just can't deflate you. But if you're going to go more that route, there's probably going to be a lot more schooling involved, especially like museum studies. Potentially need a master's degree, maybe even a PhD if you're going to go for like being, a museum curator, things like that. So while I enjoyed the art history and thought it was great, I wish someone had let me know that like, yeah, that's not necessarily going to make you more marketable as far as like being in the museum world. So, but yes, I digressed a little there, but starting out at a community college for the first 1 or 2 years so you can save money and then transferring to a larger university or an art and design school or whatever that might look like for you. I definitely think that's a good way to go. It's kind of hard to not sometimes look back and go, I spent all that money for 4 years of university and what did I get out of it? But I did learn a lot, and I, personally, I did not enjoy college. I'll just come out and say that now. The main thing that kept me there was I was in choir and built a really wonderful community with them, and so that was like always the highlight of my day. And luckily, it was offered every day except Friday, so that was great. And yes, I did. There were certain art classes where I did learn a lot and felt like I was getting things out of it. But once I was in those upper years, and with the college I went to, where it was like the arts and sciences school, there were so many general like core credits that you had to get. And I had so many conversations saying, why do I have to take this many courses for things that literally are not gonna, like, yeah, it's like humanities and overall general learning and knowledge is great, and I am all for that, but not paying thousands of dollars when a lot of time those classes I took were just so, I didn't feel like they behooved me in any way. So just being mindful of that, and a huge university as well. I just didn't feel like I fit in. It was hard for me. I wound up graduating a semester early, partly because of that, because I was like, I don't like this college thing. I'm just gonna get through this school and be done, and then get into the real world. And then the joke was on me, because then I had to be in the real world. But anyhow, so just knowing that, and that, maybe a large university is not for you. Knowing your personality, I'm more of an introverted type person. I'm not a partier, never have been, never will be. So maybe just thinking about, again, the community college option or a smaller school, and yeah, all of that. Now, so I've gone on and on, so I'm going to try and wrap up here. Now, I will say that for a while I thought, like, what is an art degree doing for me? It's not going to help me get any job, like, because I was trying for graphic design jobs for quite a while, and, I was getting rejected because it was like, well, you don't have like a graphic design background, because the school I went to, they didn't have any sort of graphic design track for art. And which is fine, because ultimately the fine arts were my true, like, traditional drawing and painting is where my true passion lies. But I wanted to find a way to have some sort of art related job. And that was really tough to be told, like, yeah, you maybe have a design sense, but like not being able to get those graphic design jobs. So ultimately I wound up, after like hopping around, actually very first job I got out of college was very, very part-time as a shelver at a library. So basically putting books back on shelves, and I'd always loved a library, always loved to read. Although funny enough, when you become a librarian like that, you don't have time to read anymore. But again, I digress. So ultimately the job, the place where I currently work, the first job I landed there, it was later on, I was talking with my supervisor, and I said, yeah, I just don't know the art degree. Like, has it actually helped me in the workforce? And she told me, she said, Corey, one of the main reasons why we hired you for this position was because you had that art background. And we thought, working with teens and how often, like, there were requests for art programs for teens, we thought that was like a great fit. So that was really encouraging to hear, like, oh, it was because of my art degree. That's partially why I got that job. So you never know. Honestly, any type of higher education, I think, can be really helpful. It seems like these days, even if you have some type, like, bachelor's degree or even an associate's degree, that's going to open doors for you no matter what the degree is. So I guess I'll giving a little plug for higher education, even though anytime I've been in the higher education world, I've not really enjoyed it. But hopefully it will help you in the long run. So my answer, after this very long, convoluted monologue, is that yes, it was worthwhile. It has gotten me to the place I am now, and I might not be doing what I'm doing with my art, or be who I am not having gone through that 4-year college experience. But just recommending to everyone that you really do the research, really think about it, as far as, like, do you want to start out at a community college? Do you want to be at a giant school where sometimes you just feel like a number, or that, the classes things that they're teaching don't necessarily align with who you are or your values? And just careful consideration. And if you feel like, do I really have to go to that many years of school when I already have a talent? Maybe looking at, smaller, like, just signing up for one college course just to build some of that technique and then going on your own rather than going through a whole 4 years or however long you want to be, for, in my case, 3.5 at college. So that's my answer. Education and learning, it tends to be a good thing and hopefully will open doors for you. But don't feel like that has to be the path you take. So thanks so much if you have stayed through this whole video. It's a long one, but hopefully that gave you some ideas about what you might do and just what an art degree at a 4-year university might be like. And if you enjoy it, I hope you like this video and even subscribe. That would be wonderful. But until the next time, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. I hope life brings you many blessings. See you in the next one.